The pandemic, what it has done, it has accelerated the technological changes in the way that we interact. So which brings me to the point of lifelong learning and why does it become so important?
Hello and welcome to the guest segment of the Breakfast Connect on Africa Business Radio. I'm your host, Chukwunonso Modi. Today we journey to South Africa. With the emergence of the pandemic, the educational system experienced challenges like staggered and disrupted learning that affected students in many ways. Now, while some may have grown in confidence from adapting to a hybrid learning approach, others may have become discouraged in their learning altogether. But as many students take steps closer to achieving their career aspirations, struggling to find employment is a stark reality that awaits them. Joining us to talk about the value of lifelong learning is the Deputy Vice-Chancellor responsible for research, innovation and internationalization at Nelson Mandela University in South Africa. Welcome, Dr. Thandi Mgwebi. It's an honor to have you here.
Thank you very much, and thank you to your listeners.
Okay. So, Dr. Thandi, share with us your experience at the peak of the pandemic. How challenging was it for students and teachers at Nelson Mandela University?
Thank you, Esther. Maybe let me start by saying the experiences at Nelson Mandela University are no different from experiences around the world, in fact, in the higher education sector.
Yes.
What we have experienced in 2020 during the start of the pandemic is the quick response to change that the sector had to develop skills to change quickly towards emergency online remote learning spaces. Yeah. Some universities did well, others did not do so well in terms of changing. As you may know, change in the higher education sector is not so easy. Lecturers and students learned how to use new tools almost overnight. And this meant that for tertiary institutions, they have to make structural changes, not only in the physical infrastructure, as you would imagine, the buildings, but how they operate, how we use those spaces when we got to the space where we actually have to have hybrid approaches. So lecturers, students, and even administrators, we mustn't forget about the administrators. They had to adapt, to innovate, and change processes so that the transition from the traditional ways of learning to online learning is successful. So there wasn't time to even look at scenarios and properly and look at consequences. What will it mean? Because we were forced to act this way. Okay. So the way it has affected students in our country, in South Africa, there's a division on how students have experienced. Some because they don't have access to internet and Wi-Fi. Others do. As you know, there's lots of disparities in terms of the rich and poor in the country. So there's been those challenges of access. And we were happy to get to a stage where we could do hybrid teaching and learning so that students can experience the hybrid approaches in various ways.
Okay, thank you. Yes. So right now, is it better than what it was before at the beginning?
I must say yes. To an extent, it's much better because government came in terms of assisting with the national laptop initiative to students wherever they are to make sure that there's data, they get given certain gigs so that they are able to connect. But you get those situations where there's no Wi-Fi in the environments where the students are. It's better now in the sense that we are now in South Africa in level 1 lockdown. So there's opportunities for a little bit more students to be on campus, but not all of them are on campus. So there's double load for lecturers because you have to do lectures online, but you also have to do lectures physically. So the workload has increased because of this. Yes.
Okay. Interesting. Yeah. Now, a community agency for social inquiry case study conducted in 2000 revealed that unemployment was the single biggest challenge facing young South Africans. How is the statistics today for the youths, especially at the height of the third wave of the pandemic in South Africa?
I don't have the real latest. Unemployment rates is measured in different ways and interpreted differently by different scholars who work in the field.
Yeah.
But a ballpark figure with the July unemployment rate among youth, it looks like it has shot up to 64% among youth, which is shocking. And of course, it's not acceptable.
Yes, it isn't.
And we have to develop ways and motivate even students to look at different approaches for their careers. Firstly, let me just say that the traditional skills that were traditionally important have now changed in the hierarchy of what skills are important. Yeah. Now you get to see a number of skills, like, for example, creativity, partnership, networking. These are important skills now in this era because the pandemic, what it has done, it has accelerated the technological changes in the way that we interact. So, which brings me to the point of lifelong learning and why does it become so important? Because you have to do it not only for increasing your chance of job prospects for your professional, but also for personal reasons, because you want, or both, professional and personal, because you want information, you want professional career growth, and you have to move quickly into a space where you are able to become marketable.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
So now this value of lifelong learning, of education, can you go deeper? What inspired that particular article you wrote?
Yes, the article is about, in fact, it started with a campaign to attract postgraduate students, for students to become aware of the opportunities to do postgraduate studies at Mandela University.
Okay.
And we are encouraging people to go for postgraduate studies, those who have received their degrees, and to look at options. This is where it started.
Okay.
But in addition to this, even if you have a career already, lifelong learning becomes important because you want to become relevant all the time. And the Nelson Mandela University offers that opportunity in the sense that you can come in as a full-time student, you can come in as a professional who's in the field, and you can do short courses, you can do full-time courses. The opportunities are there. It just requires some motivation and self-motivation and self-guiding, I must say, to study and to realize that you need to acquire new skills.
Okay. So now, how can this lifelong learning, this tool, empower young people and help them evolve, especially with the technological adoption by business organizations, which are set to transform tasks, jobs, and skills by 2025?
Oh, yes. Well, it's a two-way, let me say. It's not only, we mustn't only look at business, but we must also look at ourselves as individuals.
Okay.
Yes. The same technological advances that have made lifelong learning so important have also made it more readily available. You see what I'm saying? Because people can engage in lifelong learning whenever, wherever they are. And it does seem like now, however they choose, because you can learn from video material, informational interviews. You can use advanced learning platforms. You can do short courses. Industries can partner with universities to develop targeted short courses for professionals. I can make an example. I just finished a course now on business sustainability management, which was entirely online, and which I did it with the University of Cambridge in the UK. Okay. So it's just that constant hunger and thirst for learning in new areas that are emerging. As you would know, that sustainability is a buzzword at the moment, but it's actually a real knowledge area that requires attention. So you develop that kind of thirst and you develop that kind of inquiry into what's relevant. How can we advance? How can we promote sustainable development and sustainability? That's what motivated me. But people have got different motivations. Yeah. I'm just making an example.
Okay. Yes. Now, education is important, and then lifelong learning, with what you said, there's so much value on it. How can schools, universities implement this powerful tool in order to prepare undergraduates and graduates for life outside school?
Oh, you mean people accessing lifelong?
Yes, like how can it be like a curriculum, maybe, and something that is taught in schools as well, so people can key into it?
Yes. I think the important thing for me is partnerships. If there are partnerships with schools and business and communities, then you get, because lifelong learning is not only directed at graduates. I mean, it's directed to society, basically. And I'll give you an example. We want to improve agriculture. We want communities to benefit from the opportunities offered by agriculture. But the skills in farming in the communities where the land is are not there. And how do you promote and how do you support young farmers who want to do this? And the only way, the only plausible way, is to use information that's available and knowledge that is created by both the communities and the universities. So partnerships becomes important. Okay. But for people who are educated, like yourselves, and people who already have degrees, the barriers are not too many. They can be overcome. Firstly, high quality educational program require an investment of time and money. So you want some time and money, but you can get other platforms. Like I said, like you go to videos, schools can use role modeling, that you get role models to visit schools. So partnerships become very key so that people can see themselves in people who have achieved what they would want to be. And you use those opportunities for motivation and inspiring young children, and particularly I would say girls and young children. Okay.
So now I want to talk about the youths now, because it's one thing to bring this thing to them and try to teach them the value of lifelong learning, and another thing for them to want it, to engage in it. So how do you engage these youths to want to key into the value of lifelong learning?
One of the platforms for engaging is the use of science centers, for example, in communities. Because if schools are exposed to these science centers, I'll give you an example. In South Africa, in a rural area called Kofimbava, the government has just launched and opened a new science center where it's got the possibility of servicing youth from anywhere in the country, basically through technology, but it's based in a rural village. Something that's never heard of. Those are the options, because when we were young, we would be taken by bus to go. I grew up from a rural environment, so taken by bus to go visit a city which is far away, so that you can be exposed, or you can even see what a zoo is. It looks like, things like that. But now you've got opportunities where these things are brought to you where you are through technology, and that's where it starts with regards to schools.
Okay.
And to exposure and how they can make use of the opportunities. I think the partnerships become key, but also just encouraging people to become conscious of the changing world of work. At universities currently, there's lots of talks, including Nelson Mandela University, about the changing world of work and what will it mean for graduates who are in this ever-changing environment. And therefore the curriculums are being looked at continuously, and it's a process that's not going to stop, because they need to be reviewed so that they remain relevant.
So with this issue of unemployment in South Africa, not just South Africa, because it's also an issue around the world, you're saying that lifelong learning is one solution to curb this unemployment.
Yes, it is one option. In fact, it's a supporting platform for what people want to do, because you can do entrepreneurial studies and become an entrepreneur. But even if you are already an entrepreneur, you need lifelong learning, because you have to keep constantly adapting to your customer base, to the market. Things change. The environment is constantly changing. So lifelong learning becomes a constant. in all these changes, because you need to adapt each time.
Yeah, very true.
Yes.
Very true, because the world has changed. It's no longer come out of school and a job's already waiting for you now. So entrepreneurship is key now. Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Thandi, for an amazing conversation. I'm sure the listeners and myself too learned a lot from this.
Thank you very much, Esther, and thank you for inviting me to speak on this topic. Thank you. Okay.
So that was Dr. Thandi Mgwebi, Deputy Vice-Chancellor responsible for research, innovation and internationalization at Nelson Mandela University in South Africa. Stay here.